We're happy to be with you this evening. I think we're always happy to be in the association of Vaishnavas, and we're always happy to have the chance to be able to render service to Vaishnavas. If I'm not mistaken, there was a discussion in Chaitanya Charitamrita between Srila Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And a question came up, what is the most painful or distressful situation that a living being can be placed within? And the answer was that I can think of no situation which is more painful or distressful than to be in a situation where we do not have the association of Vaishnavas. So Vaishnava Sangha is the greatest treasure that we can find in our lives. Vaishnavas, they keep Krishna within their hearts, and the focus of the life of the Vaishnava is the service of Krishna. And then as our Srila Govinda Swami was explaining to us this morning at Srila Kishora's house, that when Krishna sees that we associate with and serve Vaishnavas, then Krishna becomes very pleased and satisfied. I think it's probably quite a normal type of psychology that if say I'm the head of a corporation, and I have an officer who is very diligent in his work, and then I see another person in the corporation who will perform his duties very nicely to that officer, then naturally I will be pleased, with that other individual. So when Krishna sees that we associate with the people who have given their hearts and lives to Him, then Krishna bestows mercy upon us. There's a statement in the Bhagavatam that when we associate with Vaishnavas, and when we render service to Vaishnavas, Krishna becomes pleased. And the reciprocation that Krishna blesses us with is that we develop a taste for hearing about the topics of Vasudeva. And those topics of Vasudeva and taste for the name of the Lord, these are the things that are going to free us from material existence. All of us have the very practical experience that the more we're absorbed. Can you turn that down a little bit? There's a bit of an echo there. The more we're absorbed in chanting Hare Krishna properly, and the more we're absorbed in reading Srila Prabhupada's books, the more we're absorbed in hearing the topics of Krishna and the signs of Krishna from the lips of Vaishnavas, the less we feel the pinch of material life. The less we're absorbed in chanting the holy names, the less we are absorbed in hearing the topics of Krishna from the lips of Vaishnavas or from reading and studying Srila Prabhupada's books. We feel ourselves caught in the grips of Maya. It's like our whole vision of life changes. So I think that we should always be very, very clear that the greatest saving grace for all of us is to keep Vaishnava association, and the greatest saving grace for us is to serve Vaishnavas. I'd like to tell the story. I'll just tell a short story. And maybe you all have heard this story before because I tell it so many times. But it's the story of when Srila Prabhupada's last days, before he left this world to go join Krishna in the spiritual world. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada was just laying on his bed in Vrindavan. He hadn't eaten for practically a year, and his physical situation, I mean, from the material perspective, it was a miracle that he was alive. Basically, Prabhupada, because of not eating, he was just like the bone and some skin hanging on the bone. There was no, meat in there, there was no muscle in there, that had all been, gone away. He used to just lay on his bed, and devotees would sing Hare Krishna, or devotees would read Bhagavatam to Prabhupada. Prabhupada was particularly fond of hearing the second chapter of the first canto. He liked hearing that so much. He was just so absorbed in the process of bhakti. And I was the cook in Vrindavan. At that time we didn't have gas bottles in Vrindavan, we only had wood. So I would start cooking at 5 in the morning on my wooden fires, and I would cook the breakfast, and I would cook the lunch, and then the devotees would take lunch at about 2 o'clock, and I would serve the lunch. Then I'd go up to my room, and I would have a good scrub for about an hour, because cooking on that wood, I would come out looking just black. Yeah. Like I had come from Africa or something. Really black, covered with ash and dirt. And so I had my scrub, and then I'd walk over to Srila Prabhupada's room to see if I could go in and just sit in Prabhupada's room, because many times it was possible at that time. And that afternoon I walked over, and there was a big padlock on Prabhupada's door. And I was thinking, I thought two things. I was thinking, oh my goodness, Prabhupada maybe does not feel well today. And then I was thinking, oh my goodness, maybe his sannyasi secretaries are in a cranky mood and they just don't want anyone to come in. But something interesting was there. One of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers was pacing back and forth impatiently in front of Prabhupada's door. And this godbrother, his name was Srila Akinchan Krsnadas Babaji Maharaj. And Prabhupada gave his own Prabhupada seal of approval on this godbrother, that he was a Paramahamsa. And that he only had one interest in life, and that was the name of God. And he couldn't stop chanting the name of God. So I had met this godbrother before, and I saw him, he was pacing back and forth impatiently. The lock was on the door. And so I bowed down, and I took dust from his lotus feet, and I folded my hands, and I said, Maharaj, what do you want? He said, I want to see Prabhupada immediately. So then the computer started to work. And I knew that there was the back garden entrance to Prabhupada's house. So I went in through there, and I went into Prabhupada's room, and His Holiness Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada's laying on his bed, and Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj is sitting next to Prabhupada, reading the mail to Prabhupada. They would read, enlivening letters to Prabhupada every afternoon, so Prabhupada's spirits would be up. And I went in, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj looked at me, and he said, yes. And I said, Akinchan Krsnadas Babaji Maharaj wants to see Prabhupada immediately. Prabhupada said, what did he say? Prabhupada, Akinchan Krsnadas Babaji Maharaj wants to see you immediately. Prabhupada said, bring him immediately. So then I ran out, and I said, Maharaj, come. He started smiling. He was very pleased. I'd gotten him in. So I took him in, and Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he stepped off the bed, and Babaji Maharaj just bounced up on the bed next to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada looked up at him, and he looked at Prabhupada, and they were smiling and just offering pranams to one another, and it was sort of like you could see the love between Vaishnavas was starting to flow. And then I was thinking, I'm in such an ideal position at this moment. Now I'm going to see what happens when two Paramahamsas come together. So I was observing, and what happened was this. They started cracking jokes. And Babaji Maharaj would crack a joke, Prabhupada would start laughing. And then Prabhupada would crack a joke, and Babaji Maharaj... And then Babaji Maharaj would crack a joke, Prabhupada... And then Babaji Maharaj, he cracked a joke, or he said something, and Prabhupada went, Adera Charana Seva Bhakta Sanivas Janame Janame Hoy Avivas. Prabhupada very seriously, he said, my only desire is to live in the association of Vaishnavas, birth after birth, and in their association serve their lotus feet. And that sort of caught Babaji Maharaj off guard for a second. And then, but just a second later, he cracked another joke. Prabhupada started laughing. And then Prabhupada cracked a joke. Babaji Maharaj started laughing. And then Babaji Maharaj said something, and Prabhupada went, Tadira Charana Seva Bhakti Sanivas Janame Janame Hoy Avivas. So for me, that was the lesson, from this experience of seeing the two Paramahamsas together, and to see what was within the heart of the Paramahamsas. It's not that they started discussing some very secret, high-level, esoteric Krishna Katha, or talks of Krishna's intimate Leelas. Prabhupada was saying, I just want to be with Vaishnavas. Birth after birth. Let me just stay with Vaishnavas. Let me just serve Vaishnavas' feet one way or another, birth after birth. And so that was like a good lesson that I saw. Then Prabhupada folded his hands very humbly. He looked at Babaji Maharaj. He said, could you sing for me? And Babaji Maharaj, you could sing like a cuckoo bird. He said, yes. And then he sang one beautiful song from Sharanagati, one Nama Mahatmya, glorification of the holy names. Just sweet like sugar, just clapping his hands. And then he looked at Prabhupada and said, now I go. Prabhupada said, thank you very much. And then gave pranam, and he bounced off the bed and started running out the door. Srila Prabhupada said, he must have Mahaprasad. Prabhupada was always very particular about this. Every guest had to have Mahaprasad. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj turned to me, you must give him Mahaprasad. So then I started running out. Babaji Maharaj had made it to about the guest house lobby at that point, and I went, Babaji Maharaj, please, you sit here. I'm going to go and get you Mahaprasad. He went, oh, thank you. He said, but please, one thing. And I said, what is that? He said, only a little bit. You ISKCON people like to eat 1 kilo of Mahaprasad. He said, maybe just a little bit. So I went to the front of the temple, I brought 2 basin laddu. I mean, just such 2 simple basin laddu, and there was tulsi leaf in a leaf cup. And I came to him and I said, Babaji Maharaj, Mahaprasad. And he looked at me. And it's like this look came on his face. It's like he was like a boy. He started to glow and he was saying, Mahaprasad. You're giving me Mahaprasad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And he was as old as Srila Prabhupada. I mean, my goodness, in his life, how many basin ladus did he have? And he was like so thankful. And he said, and he looked at me and said, now may I go? So then he started to step out the front of the guest house, and then I got the next lesson. The next lesson was this, lesson number 2 of the way pure devotees relate. When he started to step out the gate, the door of the guest house, it was like 1 step down, and there was somebody sitting on that step. There was an old lady sitting on the step. A very round lady, old lady, clad in white sari, and she was bent over from her waist. And when she looked up, and I could see the face that had the sari across the head, it was Srila Prabhupada's face. Meaning, it was Prabhupada's sister, Pishima. And Pishima looked up and she saw Babaji Maharaj, and Babaji Maharaj looked at Pishima and saw her, and these big smiles came on their face. It was just sort of like, again, there was this love exchange started to go between Vaishnavas, and it had nothing to do with, bodies. It had nothing to do with being men or women or anything like that. It was just some special mood of, like transcendental affection. And Babaji Maharaj was standing there with his hands folded. And then Pishima, as she got up, you remember Pishima, she was always bent. Right, she was like right from your waist, bent over. And she was very round. Prabhupada used to like look at her and say, in front of his Western, and she didn't speak English, she only spoke Bengali. And Prabhupada used to look at her, and all the Westerners would be sitting there, and Prabhupada very boldly say, why are you so fat? And all the Westerners would start crying. And, Pishima would say, I don't know, Baya. She said, I'm just, I'm not eating more, but I'm just becoming more round. And Prabhupada said, listen to how my sister lies. And all the devotees would start laughing, and Pishima would start smiling, thinking Prabhupada was saying something complimentary. So Pishima decided that she was going to touch Babaji Maharaj's feet. So then this next nice session began, where Babaji Maharaj is standing there like this. Pishima is completely bent over and she's trying to get to Babaji Maharaj's feet, and just when she's about to put her fingers on his toes, he quickly scoots backwards about 5 inches. And she looks and she's like the feet have moved back, and he's going, and she's looking up and like, and they're like smiling and laughing, and then he's saying, come on, take the dust. So she tries again, and she's just about ready to touch the feet, and then he like scoots back, and he just breaks it down and starts laughing, and she starts, and finally he allowed her to touch the feet. And Pishima, like Prabhupada was an artist, like everything, because he was a pure devotee. I mean, if Prabhupada just went, it was like artwork. If Prabhupada just put his finger up, it was like artwork. If when Prabhupada began the class, and he would finish the purport, he would go, so, and it was just like artwork. And Pishima, she was like that also. Like she reached over and she just was like rubbing his feet like she was collecting dust. And then she took her hand and she rubbed her hand on her head. She took her glasses off. She started rubbing her eyes. And she was like smelling the dust. And I think she even like licked her hand. I mean, she was like really. She wanted mercy from the Vaishnava. And then he looked at her and smiled and he said, I have Mahaprasadam. Would you like Mahaprasadam? I mean, such simple exchanges of love, but it was so endearing. And Pishima was one of the best cooks in the whole universe. When Prabhupada first took the devotees to India, they were touring around India and they came to Calcutta and they went for prasadam. Prabhupada was bragging. He was saying, now we will go to my sister's home and we will take prasadam. And they got to Pishima's house and Pishima cooked a whole Bengali feast. And it was all cooked in mustard oil. And Prabhupada trained us that we were only supposed to eat in ghee. And Prabhupada said, ghee is for the inside of the body, oil is for the outside of the body. So we were very fanatic, and we would only cook in ghee, and here everything is cooked in mustard oil. And everything Prabhupada is tasting, he's going, ooh, ah. And finally Jamuna, our god sister who just passed away recently, who was a world famous cook, she came to Prabhupada, she said, but Prabhupada, everything is cooked in mustard oil. Prabhupada said, so what? She said, but Prabhupada, you said that ghee is for the inside of the body, oil is for the outside of the body, we shouldn't eat oil. Prabhupada said, I never said that. Who is telling these lies? I have never said. So Babaji Maharaj just offers Pishima, I have Mahaprasadam. Would you like? And she just lit up like a light. Mahaprasadam. And he gave her like one basin laddu. She must have cooked tons of basin laddu in her life. And she took this. For her, it's like the greatest treasure just to get a simple piece of prasadam from a Vaishnava. And then the exchange on that, the reciprocation on that is Pishima had her bottle of Ganga Jal. Remember that? Pishima always carried a bottle of Ganga Jal. And one morning after Mangalarti, she was coming out of the temple, she tripped on a step and she sort of toppled over. And I was helping to pick her up. And Devi Shakti was there. And Devi Shakti could speak Bengali, Hindi, everything. My god sister from America. And I said, Devi Shakti, ask Pishima why she always has this bottle of Ganga Jal in her hand. So Devi Shakti asked, Pishima answered, Devi Shakti told me, Pishima has said that she is living in a miserable, filthy, contaminated woman's body. And every time she sits down in a place, she makes that place filthy and contaminated by her presence. So when she gets up, she sprinkles Ganga Jal to purify it. Imagine having consciousness like that, you know. So she looked at him and said, "Would you like Ganga Jal?" And he went, "Ganga Jal." And so she gave him some drops of Ganga Jal. He took, and then they just left. So I was seeing those sweet exchanges of love between the pure devotees. And therefore, it's really a fact, and maybe we haven't learned that fact yet, but we should try to focus on that fact. That for us, the greatest treasure in life is to be in Vaishnava association. For us, the greatest treasure in life is to have the opportunity to serve Vaishnavas because they are Krishna's people. And for us, the greatest treasure in life is to hear the messages of Krishna from the lips of pure devotees. Kapil Dev says, "Satam prasangam amavirya sanvido bhavanti vidkarna sayana katha." He says that you can only understand my chivalrous glories if you associate with pure devotees. And if you do that, then the burning in your ear and the burning in your heart will stop. Your involvement in the repetition of birth and death will stop. Your involvement in the process of liberation will begin. And he says, Shraddha Ratir Bhakti Anukramisyati. He says, first there will be Shraddha, and that Shraddha means the strong faith in the practices of sadhana bhakti yoga. And by practicing our sadhana bhakti yoga very carefully and with taste and with relish, then Krishna will bestow his mercy and we will come to the position of rati or bhav bhakti, which is the dawn of prema. And if we will continue performing our bhakti very nicely, from the dawn of prema, we can actually enter into the fully developed dimension of love for Krishna in Vaishnava association. So with that, I'd like to just say it's, again, we're so happy to have your association this evening. We'll sing Hare Krishna for a little bit, and then we'll ask my friend Srila Govinda Swami to give us instructions. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.